Okay, here's your level 3 and 4 practice for writing quadratics. So I got a problem here, and anytime you have a problem, first thing you should always do is draw a picture. So what I got is I got some type of a picture. Looks like this. And it says that this dimensions here is 80 square inches. Okay? Now, within that 80 square inches, it's developed into two different parts. There's a frame, and then there's the picture inside the frame. And it's telling me that the picture is 5 inches by 7 inches. And what I don't know is this frame, so we're going to label this x. Okay, and then I need to write a quadratic equation and solve it to figure out what the width of the frame is, which is what is x right here. So that's our goal. So I'm going to start by figuring out what the length is. So I want to know what, well, we'll go with width first. I want to know what the width is because the area of a rectangle is width times length, or length times width. So I need to know what this width is. Well, it's 5 inches here, and then I got this little x here, but on the other side, right here, there's another x. So when I add it up, I get x plus 5 plus x, so the total width is going to be 2x plus 5. X plus x is a 2x plus 5. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I have x is right here. So remember, this is the same width all the way around. This would also be x. So the length here is going to be 2x plus 7. Okay? And we said area is width times length. So I need to multiply these out. So I got 2x plus 5 times 2x plus 7. And we said the area was 80. So the total here is going to be 80. Now I've written my equation. Now we have to solve it. So we're going to use the distributive property. 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times 7 is going to be 14x. 5 times 2 is 10, so I get 10x. And 5 times 7 is 35, is equal to 80. And then we're going to go ahead and simplify it. So we got 4x squared, 14x plus 10x is 24x plus 35. And remember, we need this equal to 0, so I'm going to subtract 80 from both sides. So 8, 7, 6, 5. So that's 45. Negative 45 is equal to 0. Now, only thing I got left to do is I got to solve this problem. Now, the ones I'm going to give you on the quiz are going to be factorable. This particular one is not. So you could either use your level 4 factor to try to factor it, or you can use the quadratic formula. I'm going to opt for the quadratic formula here. But remember, the ones that I'm going to give you to practice on are going to be better than this because these are going to be factorable. This particular one is not. So if I'm going to use the quadratic formula, I'm going to say that A is 4, B is 24, and C is negative 45. Remember, that comes from right here. A, B, and C, as long as this is equal to 0. So A is the number before x squared, B is the number before x, and C is the number by itself. We're going to plug it into the quadratic formula. So it's negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A, which is 4, and C, which is negative 45, all over 2 times A, which is 4. And we're going to clean this up some. So I got negative 24 plus or minus. On the bottom, I got an 8. And I'm going to use the calculator because those are really big numbers. So 24 squared ends up being 576. And then I got 4 times 4 times 45 is 720. And it's going to be adding because I have two negatives. So plus 720, and that is 576, 12,000 or 1,296. So I get negative 24 plus or minus the square root of 1,296 over 8. And I'm going to type those in the calculator. Remember, you do this twice, once with the plus, once with the minus. So I got parentheses, negative 24 plus square root of 1,296 divided by 8. And the answer is negative 39 halves, which is approximately negative 19.5. So one option is negative 19.5, and the other one, this isn't going to be good because they're both going to be negative. Apparently this can't actually work. That's exciting. So negative 24 And this time I'm going to do the minus. Oh, you know what? I made a mistake. I gotta go back and do this over. All right, let's try this one more time. Square root. So minus 24 plus square root of 1296 divided by 8 is, okay, that's what my mistake was. This is 1.5. And if you make it negative, you get negative 7.5. That makes more sense. Okay, so when I plugged in the plus, negative 24 plus the square root of 1296 and divide all that by 8, you get positive 1.5. When I type in a negative, you get negative 7.5. I'm talking about real width. Width can never be negative, so even though the quadratic formula gives us that, we're going to cross that one out. And we're going to keep this one. So our width of the picture frame is 1.5 inches. Okay, so it's 1.5 inches all the way around. Our 5x7 frame will give us a total of 80 inches squared. Okay, I'm going to have a worksheet here. I'm going to print it out, make sure you have it available in class. You need to practice these. The only way you're going to get better at it is to practice it. I highly recommend you draw a picture first. So if you have questions, please make sure you ask. Your level 4 is going to be, I give you an equation, either something like this or something else, and then you need to come up with your own story. So your level 4 question is you're going to come up with your own story problem that then you can use this equation to solve. So it'll be something else similar to that. Let me give you one more example, that something that can sometimes happen, and this is another common one. And let's say that you have I don't know, rectangular parking lot, and you want to know, you're going to find the area of the parking lot, and you want to write an equation for the area. Remember, area is length times width, but they give you the perimeter, and they say that you have a perimeter of 200 feet, and they're going to say something like the width is going to be twice the length. So if the width is twice the length, if I have the length, I get 2 W's for every 1 length. So when you write this width and length, you're going to change one of these to be over here. So our width is going to stay the same, but our length is going to be 2W. And then I'm going to use the perimeter. So the perimeter is all the way around, so I'm going to have W plus 2W plus 2W is going to be 200. So when you add it all up, you get 2W, 2W is 4W, another 2W is 6W is equal to 200. So W ends up being 200 divided by 6. And then you can plug those back in here to get the area. The other thing is you might not know what it equals, and then you're going to have to solve for it. So let's say, instead of having all this, I don't know how those will relate, but I got 4 sides, so all I know is that the total is 200. So let's do it this way. So I got a perimeter is 200, so I got length and width. So what I can tell you, though, is if I have the width, and I have 2 of these, that the length, 2 lengths plus 2 widths, is equal to 200. Because twice this is the 2 W's, and the 2 L's are right here. And when I add them up, I get 200. Well, if I want to get rid of the L or the W, I'm going to just solve for it. So I'm going to subtract 2W from both sides. So I get 2L is going to be 200 minus 2W. And divide everything by 2, and you get length is going to be 100 minus W. So 200 divided by 2 is 100. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So now instead of length here, I'm going to cross this out and replace this with 100 minus W. And now I can multiply this, because remember, area is length times width. So I got the area, we got the width of 100 minus W times W. And when you multiply it out, you get 100 times W is 100W minus W squared. And switching the order, you get minus W squared plus 100W, just because we'd like to put the squares first. And this is going to be our area. So this is another way to do it. Depending on what the question asks you, if they give you a total here, you could then solve. So let's say our total area is going to be, I don't know, I'm going to pick up random numbers here. Let's go with 200. So now you'd have negative w squared plus 100w is equal to 200. Negative w squared plus 100w minus 200 is equal to 0. And now you can solve it just like we've been solving with finding zeros. So if you have questions, make sure you ask. But there are some practice problems in the book that you can do that are like this. I'm going to encourage you to look at them, as well as the worksheet, which has some more practice problems like this that I do want you to practice with. If you have questions, please make sure you ask.